Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels podcast. I'm
the
Kyle.
number one Star Wars Legion podcast. Go ahead.
Oh man.
Do I need to start like? All right. Anyway, I'm Kyle. I'm here with the J, John Bushbacks Bushman. What's up, gentlemen?
Sorry,
Hey,
I'm
guys.
gonna be honest with you guys. I'm gonna be a little loopy. I've had a fever of like 100.9 all day today, and it just recently broke. So I'm feeling a little bit better, and so I'm gonna be off the chain tonight, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Great.
No COVID, thankfully. Just whatever nonsense my kids are bringing home.
I got something very similar
Yep.
right now. So, today we have a lot to talk about today. We were able to get some games in with some of the new rules. So we'll talk about that. We never talked about the Dark Trooper spoilers with their weapons and stuff. So we'll hit that. And then we also got they did like Imperial Remnant on stream. We got like 80% of the details, but it's enough, I think, to understand kind of what it does. So we'll talk about that too.
Kinda. And that's even if it doesn't change by the time it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
It'll change after it comes out.
Yeah. 3 times in 1 week.
I mean, the last time they spoiled something on stream, it was like the Pike Disruptor that gave out immobilized tokens at range 4. So, I don't know. We'll see. But we're going to talk about what they spoiled because they did spoil some stuff, and it's reasonably interesting. So, let's do. Before we get to all that, you got some housekeeping for us, Jay?
Yeah. So, real quick, we our issue number 1 of our magazine, One Shots. Actually, we sold out of our first print run, and it's on back order now. It'll be in a few weeks again. And then we actually have issue number 2 out now, so you guys can get that. And we also started a new way of getting it. So when I originally started this, we didn't know if it was just going to be, I called it One Shots because the whole plan was it was just going to be like a one-off. And then it kind of started to grow and people seemed interested. So we're going monthly with it. We're going to be putting it out every month. It still stands what we said before, where you could just pick individual ones. You don't have to keep getting them in sequence, but we put up a subscription service, so you can sign up, subscribe, and you'll just get it monthly then. And we also are putting it out digital as well for all our friends overseas. Shipping, even in the United States, is becoming more expensive every day, and so we put up a digital version of that as well, so everybody could have access to it. Just because I think like some of the, like to the UK and to Australia, like, so we're charging whatever $17.99 for it. It was like another $30 just to ship a magazine over there, and there's no, like, I looked into it and I'm like, nah, that can't be right. Yeah, nope. That's what it is. Nothing I can do about it. So here we are. So we're giving out digital, all that. The second thing is just something I kind of want everybody to know, that I know and that I'm aware. I have gotten several comments in direct message, but also on social media, that people have been not as excited about our customer service as we would like. And I take full ownership of that. And so I'm implementing some changes on our end. I'm not going to get into the excuses or reasons, but there were reasons, and we're implementing some changes on our end to hopefully fix that. So I just wanted you guys to know you were heard. We heard you, and we're gonna make changes there. And then the second thing is a similar thing. Some people were also saying that the quality of our new order tokens isn't where they liked it to be, where the old ones were. And we absolutely changed our process on that recently. And so I hear you on that as well. So I'm going to review that and probably go back to the old process. So I just want everybody to know that heard you loud and clear. I've been responding to most of you and talking to you guys, and I just want to get that out in the open that yes, we clearly made some mistakes there, and we're gonna go ahead and fix those and hopefully be better. I mean, just the customer service thing is we're growing. We get lots and lots of emails every day. I've mostly been going through those, and so, and so we were also having some technology issues with our email service, so there's a lot going on. So I didn't want to get into the excuses, but that's kind of the reasons behind it, and so we're fixing all of that, and hopefully those experiences will be better moving forward. It's going to take us a little time to implement some of these changes, but I'm hoping within the week we should have that turned around and be better. So sorry to everyone if that affected you, and we will be better moving forward. That's all my stuff.
All right. Well, should we get into the meat, into the beef?
Yeah.
The beef. That's a good word.
So let's talk takeaways, I guess, from last week's podcast. And the rules changes. I'm gonna be honest. I'm like I was like 60. No, I was like 80-20 when they were first coming out. I was like positive, I was like, oh no, that's fine. But then as I'm starting to like think about them more and hear you guys talk and hear other people talk, and I think something to explain to the listeners too, anybody who listens to this podcast, like, just so you guys know, this is a competitive Legion podcast. So right, so we understand that there's a whole non-competitive market out there, and we cater to that market with like Storm Tide and our One Shots magazine and stuff like that. But this specific podcast is very focused on competitive and always has been from the beginning. So we're going to talk a lot more about how things affect the competitive scene, right? And it wasn't until the middle of that podcast last week where the cover rules really like, and listen, somebody messaged me and was like, oh, Jay only understands things when you put them in terms of ATST, and they're not wrong at all. But yeah, and then Kyle, you had some pictures, I think, in our internal Discord that you were showing us of how like these guys have cover, and I was going, oh, and I don't think I fully wrapped my head around the like tracing the line from every part of the silhouette or whatever part of the silhouette to whatever part of the silhouette on the other end, and that was a big change in my head as far as that particular rule with the cover.
Yeah,
it's intense.
Yeah, you got to kind of think of it like a flashlight or like a big wide tractor beam. It's really not a line. It's it's essentially whatever the width the attacker's base you draw, and the height of their model, like you draw that, you project that towards the defender, and if that ginormous laser flashlight beam touches anything, then the defender has cover.
Yeah, so it's like you could take like one of our silhouettes that we sell on the fifthtrooper.com, but you could take one of our silhouettes and you just like drag it across right towards the defending unit, and if it crosses any terrain, that's cover.
Yeah, for small base.
Yeah,
for small base.
Yeah. It gets way more complicated after that, but yes,
it does indeed.
Yeah, so I did get a chance to play with the new rules. There are some that like I think are just unambiguously good improvements, like common sense stuff, like the moving not having to move trooper units along the tool anymore.
Oh yeah, great.
The dividing terrain into subsections.
Yep.
Something that people were already doing, stuff like that, I think is all great.
Pass mechanic is good.
The pass mechanic's great. That seems, of all like the major like actual like intentional changes.
Intentional is a great word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe we'll get into that. The pass mechanic seems to be clearly the most well thought out one, in my opinion. and I have nothing bad to say about the pass mechanic. I think it's great. I think the intent behind the reciprocal line of sight on silhouettes was fine. I think it gets super awkward with vehicles where you have a lot of like empty space that you kind of have to just visualize. But also it's worth noting, because the unit leader now has to see the defender to make an attack. Line of sight is not actually like reciprocal when you're shooting at trooper units or any multi-mini unit, because if you can catch like a miniature that's not the unit leader, and the unit leader can't see you when you take that shot, that's not a reciprocal line of sight shot. That is still a situation where the attacker is shooting the defender and the defender has to move before they can shoot back. So I think the intent was fine. I think there's some awkwardness with vehicle silhouettes. I think that awkwardness would be not as bad if not for the cover rules. So I guess all that said, I can live with most of the stuff except the cover rules.
So what do you think? What do we think was the intention? Like, why? Because it seems like at first,
with which one?
Yeah, any of it. Because it seems like at first it was like, hey, we want to try to make this easy and more accessible to players and just make this easier on everyone. But in fact, it's like overcomplicated everything, and like trying to explain this to newer players is it seems harder now than it.
The intention was clearly to make it simpler, but once everyone else got it and started to ask our questions, then the holes started getting poked and it became the difficult thing, or they realized it was the difficult thing that it is, that we see it is.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out.
Was difficult to follow.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So
I could do more of those.
I think put another way, there's a difference between simple and intuitive.
Yes.
And I think things that are intuitive are where the end result is something that's like immersive and makes sense. And I think if you look at the old rules where you're like, on a speeder bike, you're looking from the guy's head, right? On a tank, you're looking from the top of the tank. On a trooper model, yes, you have silhouettes, but most of the time that notch in the silhouette was like right above the guy's head, right? On a mortar trooper, you're looking from the guy's head. That's something that makes sense to a newer player where you're like, yeah, you just get down on the table, you look from the head of the dude. Like that's the super common, like true line of sight concept. And I feel like even though it's like more uniform to have everything have silhouettes now, I think it's not as, it might be uniform, or I hesitate to say that it's simpler, but it's definitely not as intuitive, because like you've got to imagine a point in space. In fact, you have to imagine an infinite number of points in space and then look from those points. And where the old rules where it's like you look from one point to one point and then you draw a line from one point to one point and then you're done. Like that's it.
Yeah. I mean, if they really wanted to make it simpler, everyone's gonna come at me for this, but if you really wanted to make it simpler, you would just go to what the original Legion rules was, hey, if I could see any part of the mini, I can shoot it, right? Like, and I know that sucked for like Sky Luke and some of the Wookiees. I understand. I was there, guys. I know all the downfalls of all of that, but it was a lot easier, and it just was like, oh yeah, like Kyle said, you go to the top of the head on the tank, and you go, okay, can he see Luke's arm? Yeah, great. Shoot.
Well, they didn't get rid of silhouettes, right? They just, I don't know. I don't think getting rid of silhouettes necessarily makes it simpler. I think adding them to the void above a Mark II is super weird.
Right. Well, I guess what I was saying was like, if your goal was to make it simpler, I think like looking at a mini's head, top of their head, and going, can I see their gun or their arm or whatever I can see on the other mini, then I have line of sight, I think is a simpler process than trying to, especially when you don't provide silhouettes, you provide weird pieces of paper that have no
or dimensions.
And then you just tell us that the rest of our stuff has this big cylinder silhouette that covers the entire thing and goes to its highest point of its vehicle, and you're going, what? Except for not the speeders. The the T-47 has a different. It's like, I don't. What is happening?
Yeah, it's definitely not less confusing,
Right.
in my opinion. And that's just the line of sight stuff, which I think I could probably live with. But once you get to the cover stuff, it's just so having played with the new cover rules now, I think yes, it is not immersive in that you get really weird shots where you're like, really? That's cover? There's ways to game it where like you because here's just one example. Since it rounds down, not up, when you have like 50-50 cover this time, like say you have two models in light and two models in heavy, it rounds down to light. There are situations where if your target has like two models that are in heavy cover, so you got two models behind a barricade and like two models that are in the open, if the attacker just moves slightly behind without touching some kind of light cover box or something to give those two models that are in the open light cover, you've just downgraded their cover from heavy to light by putting two models that were in the open into light cover.
Yeah.
And that's not that hard to do, simply because like any piece of terrain in between you and your target suddenly becomes cover, regardless of whether you can see over it or not. So it could be that you got like a little box or something, right? Like that's 2 millimeters in front of your guy that's light cover, and you're like, yeah, I'm not touching that because I want to give those open guys light cover so I can downgrade your cover. Like that's not intuitive. That's super gamey and lame. And if that's like all we have left for skill expression for cover, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think all that, if you even just put all that stuff aside, I think the worst thing I could say about the new cover rules is just that like they're boring. And I don't mean this just from a competitive player perspective. I've seen a lot of comments from people that have run tournaments over the weekend where they're like, yeah, we had lots of new players show up, like they thought this was crazy, they didn't understand it, and also like they kind of just gave up on trying to find no cover shots.
Yeah.
Like the process is faster because you don't do it. It'd be like, yeah, you can speed up the TSA line at the airport if
By
you
not
just told
having one.
or right. I was going to say by just telling people that they can't take any bags on. But like, would that improve the flight experience? Like faster is not always better. That's not like, but
Yeah.
yes, your analogy is maybe even better because like you're speeding it up by just not engaging in the process. And
Well,
I don't know.
It's-
I'm there's no way there's like no way to deny cover with flanking and
Yeah.
positioning and lateral positioning. It's just not a thing anymore. And that was one of the best parts about Legion, in my opinion.
And I guess, really, if you think about it, really, silhouettes don't matter at all because now you've just turned it into a 2D plane,
Right.
right? So you're just looking down at the table.
Yeah, this
And
is
you're just-
this right here. That's the only part of the mini that really matters is
Right.
the base. That's it. That's
And
the only
so
thing that matters.
you're just looking and you're going, okay, does that go through any cover from a top-down perspective? And I guess that's easier, but at the same time, it doesn't make any sense from like
98% of the time, I agree.
Yeah.
But there are things that like 3D space is going to interfere with, like bridges kind of thing. Like a bridge will sometimes give you cover depending on elevation.
Yeah, that's a weird. Yes,
Well,
you're
I
right,
mean-
but it happens. Yeah, I
it's
know.
not
I'm-
100% 2D.
Right.
Right. Only
Yeah.
99% 2D.
I guess
Right.
is yes. I guess what I guess what I'm coming at it from is like my earlier comment about just going back to the original rules.
Right.
Is like, if you're going to make it simple, like if your goal was to make it simple, then just say something like, hey, everything works on a 2D plane now. So like you just draw, you look
Marvel.
at your full, you look at your full base and you go, is there anything in between there? Yes. Okay. That's cover then. Like,
please don't actually do that. That's like even more boring, I think. But well, I guess that's debatable. But
well, what am I gonna?
yeah,
Okay, if I have an ATST, what am I gonna do? Like literally everything's cover. Like so,
I
I
know.
just go. I'll just look down from a 2D plane and just yeah, that's cover.
Bring your blast gun and run at them.
Yeah, well, that right, that's an option. I mean, and listen, I as much as I'm I guess, complaining about this. There's options around it, and there's of course ways around it. It's just, I think for me, what I'm, I guess, upset's a strong word. It's a game. It just is what it is. But what I'm the most, I don't know, upset. Let's use upset. The most upset about is that in an effort to make things easier and more accessible, which I was unlike these guys, I was 100% on board. They've actually made it 10 times harder, and it's like,
well, also removing the tactical elements at the same time.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
so just, they were like, so what we're going to do is just make no one happy.
Yeah.
So just everyone's going to be upset because this isn't easier to teach players. This isn't going to be like a fun, quicker game like I wanted. This isn't going to have the tactical experience that Kyle and John really like. It's just like, no. Oh, so none of us are happy because this is insane. I guess the only positive part is, and we saw this last week, is they're willing to update the rules pretty quickly, it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's a positive. So
Yeah.
who knows how long this will last, but for right now, going into LVO in a couple days, it's going to be a shit show. LVO is going to be real tough. I don't envy the Nima or any of the team that's going to be judging there, because it's going to be a nightmare, I think.
It's not even like, I'm not even necessarily, and I don't think there's going to be, I mean, there might be a lot of cover calls for people just not understanding how it works, especially the vehicle stuff, which it's worth mentioning. The kind of so here's how the vehicle stuff was and still is written in the RG. There is actually a 50% CRB. There is a 50% obscured at time of shot rule when you're targeting vehicles from any part of the attacking silhouette. So
I don't even know what that means.
Well, it means if you look from any part of the attacking silhouette and 50% of the vehicle is obscured from any part of it, then it gets cover. So, for example,
so a barricade,
right?
Yeah.
Well, not barricades, because barricades specifically do not give cover to vehicles. But say you have literally anything else that's that size, like this box, and you have this trooper who's like here, right? Like can't quite get up to it, and you've got an ATST who's like over there somewhere. If you look from his foot, that ATST is 50% obscured by that box. Now they did say the golden rule of terrain is that players should discuss terrain before the game. The way that it's worded in the CRB, it kind of basically, there used to be an explicit step that said like you check and see if a model is 50% of the height of a terrain piece on like a mini by mini type basis, and if it's 50% of the height of the terrain piece or less, then it can get cover from that. If it's more, then it can't. That step is completely gone. They've essentially said via forum post that if you want to use the golden rule of terrain discussion to like put that back in, you can.
So they've made it more subjective. So players with vehicles really need to advocate for things giving them cover or not. I guess they would want cover.
If you're a player with
against vehicles,
vehicle,
like you're going to be in opposite positions. One wants the vehicle to have cover, one doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the vehicle player could reasonably say like, look, the rules under ground vehicles say that at the time of the shot, you check to see if it's 50% obscured, and I'd like to, this box could conceivably fulfill that requirement.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, I'd like to check at the time of the shot. I think that would be reasonable for like somebody running a vehicle.
Yeah, a judge wouldn't be able to help you in that position. Like they would have the rules on their side.
Yeah, and maybe this is like I feel like there's a lot of situations like this with the new rules where it's like, well, it can't work that way. And it's like, but that's what it says.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see. I'm personally not going to be saying that my speeder bikes get cover from tiny boxes on Friday, but I could totally understand if someone wanted to try and do something like that, because that's what the rules tell you to do. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know.
Fortunately, that's only really relevant when there's impact, and not many units bring impact.
Well,
cover against vehicles, I should say.
But that's against armored vehicles. There's plenty of vehicles that don't have armor.
There's like 2 or 3. Well, your
pretty much,
speeders.
yeah, pretty much
Okay, your
all the
speeder
bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have a lot of vehicles that
your
have
speeder bikes, yeah.
numerical armor.
The
The
thing,
spider
Yeah.
and the land speeder.
Yep.
it just, I think what happens, and I think we're all guilty of this, is like, I just think they tried to change things to make it simpler and just ended up overcomplicating something that was already pretty simple. And I think you could have just, I'm a huge advocate of just rolling back to things we knew worked, or at least we knew what was wrong with them, and going,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah, there's a lot of
And then you just do small tweaks, or
things about
maybe you
that
just
statement.
maybe you just like write them more clearly. I mean, the biggest complaint people had about the old cover rules is like, I don't understand what this is asking me to do. And then you explain to them what it's asking you to do, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like
Right.
that's so like you just need to write it more clearly, do a picture example or two. Like it's
Yeah.
not, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been really struggling with trying to look inside my soul here a little bit and like ask myself of am I getting frustrated because it's a change and none of us like change and I'm becoming an old man and I don't like kids on my yard. I don't like, I don't like people looking at me. Is that why or is this something, and so I think I spent the last week like talking to people, and Evan and I talked about some stuff, and I overall I think most of the changes were fine. There's the whole line of sight cover silhouette thing is just like really throwing me, and it's really hard for me to even grasp the concept, which I think is insane, right? Like if you have a player who's been not only playing the game but talking about the game for 5 years, and you come out with a rule set and they're going, what? Like that, I don't know. That seems not ideal, you know? Like I just don't understand. Like I think it was just like a what's that saying? But where like they were just they just crossed the threshold of changes. Like they just needed to make all these changes and they just hit enough where it was like okay, now you've like just you were just doing change for change's sake instead of things that actually make sense, like the pass mechanic or I could the suppression one actually in Panic. It doesn't bother me. That actually makes a little, I understand why they did that, and I understand how it makes the game more accessible to players because panicking off the board it was miserable, right? And I get that. That's not a feels good thing, and so like all that makes sense. This is the only one where it was like it didn't do any, like just made this so much more complicated. Like there's no sense to this.
Yeah, more complicated, less fun, less tactically interesting, more
Yeah.
difficult to understand. Like it's like the trifecta of all. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know, some of the weird I think the other big one that really bothered me was the Yoda change recently.
The standby sharing thing.
Yeah.
Gut punch.
Like it's okay for certain heroes to have exceptions to rules because they're heroes, right? So like
they're 230 friggin' points.
Right, like hey,
in an expensive army.
Just a regular clone trooper group can't share standbys. I'm 100% on board with that because that sucked when that was a thing.
That was dumb. Yeah.
That was awful. But the Padme and Yoda sharing standbys really wasn't a problem. Everybody like that was okay. It was okay, and it was a cool little gimmick.
It was
that
something
they had.
good that like you would see a lot in Anakin Padme
Yeah.
lists, and it was you could plan for it, and it was something good. But they were normally lower act. You might have some 9 or 10 act lists with that, but it helped prove that they were elite. That clones were elite units. It's like meh.
As a Republic player, I at least understand the intent, because people have said for a long time, like, well, it's so good within the faction that you kind of need to run it, and it's affecting internal balance. And I respect that argument. What I guess we will see is if they take the additional steps now to kind of like actually balance the faction around having those things
now.
absent. Like like Padme needs to be like 70 points now.
Yeah.
And
Like you
know,
just did a points update. Like why
That
wouldn't you knew
that
that
part
was
gets me a lot.
yeah, you
That
knew these
there
were
were a
all
lot
coming.
of changes, a lot of nerfs that didn't show up with buffs in the points update. Like they just
well, easily foreseeable ones too. Like if you're
Yes.
gonna cut standby sharing for an exemplar, you got to cut Padme by something, because you know, externally speaking, like in the Republic on other faction matchups, that mechanic was pretty balanced. You know, if you want to argue that she was too essential inside the faction, that's fine, but that still means that you need to like cut her if you overtly nerf the thing that she does the most.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like the deflect change too. Like if you're gonna make it so that deflect doesn't work in melee anymore, so you can't spend those dodge tokens for surges, that's gonna very negatively affect a lot of force users, most of which were probably, I think people would argue, in a pretty good spot balance wise.
Definitely not
So-
overpowered spot.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That's
There's-
and that like I get that they were making a thematic change there. Like yes, it's not a thematic thing to be
Yep.
able to deflect, but it was already thematically correct where a dodge didn't deal wounds back
Right.
in melee.
It just made them better defenders.
Yeah, which
seems
they should
fine.
be having a lightsaber
Right.
in melee in their element. I don't know.
Yeah.
That feels like a 20-point cut that they should get.
yeah, I think that's
Into the Fray doesn't cut it.
that
It really
too-
doesn't. And not everyone can take it either.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And I think that too was just an odd like
Oops.
you're making all these wholesale changes to like unintended consequence changes, right? And you and I guess you could say, well, we're gonna see how it plays out. I mean, but are you really gonna see if like no one plays Gar anymore? Like if that just everyone's like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like they don't really have anything anymore, so I guess we're good, you know?
I think the payload change is a good example of that.
Oof.
Like I don't really understand, like what do they think that you're gaining by making it so the payload can't fly anymore? All you're doing is telling people to cut it from their decks.
Yep.
That's literally all
It's
it
an
does. You're just,
extreme wild card of an objective.
yeah, you cannot take that objective to a tournament.
Benefits red player pretty good.
Yeah,
Choosing table side and
right. I mean, like you might be fine, I guess,
maybe.
but like there's a non-zero chance that like you will just automatically lose if you have to play payload because it cannot fly over some stupid wall or something that is in between you and the point that your opponent picks for your payload.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just it's not that like, yeah, most people that play payload are probably not going to notice, but like if you're going to a tournament and you plan to play 3 to 6 games, you can't bring payload, which is unfortunate because I think that was one of the objectives that lend itself more to like early and often engagement, which I know is something that like they're in favor of. If you look at, you know, the change to tie breaks and how that works, like payload was a great objective for chaos and you know, just like having lots of stuff shooting other stuff and, you know, getting in melee, and like, you know, payload is a agent of chaos objective, and so is hostage. And that payload change, like I don't really understand what the purpose of that was, and it just means that you just don't take payload, which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And there's other stuff too, like the speeder bike, the repulsive vehicle one, where you can't take damage anymore. Like, why would you remove the disincentive that people had to crash and then expect people not to use it like proactively?
Yeah.
For positioning reasons. Like that existed for a reason, because you don't want people trying to crash on purpose so they don't have to move as far.
Right.
I
want to say Evan did that against Lucas in their game that they played on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, that doesn't cause damage anymore. So there we go.
Yeah. So I'm going to just stop short here and stay in this firing position for as long as I
Did we
need to.
get confirmation on whether or not they have to take a full move if one exists?
I think that is still
Still
outstanding.
pending?
Yeah.
Mine never got answered. It was
Okay.
at least 4 days outstanding. I haven't checked today. I'll check.
And I think it's disturbing for separate reasons that they don't have a ready answer for that. Like, did you not anticipate people trying to do that on purpose?
Yeah.
I don't know. But and I think either answer is problematic, right? Like if you say, well, you adjust the movement tool and then you move as far as you can, then that opens up a lot of situations where you can do it on purpose. But if you say like, well, you have to try and make a full move, even if that means like bending the movement tool around other ways, like how hard do you have to try? You know what I mean? Like that's just too much ambiguity for me.
I don't think it would be ambiguous. I mean, I don't think they could say you have to try by using your initial actions to pivot. Like if you're doing your compulsory at the end, there's only it's
you have to
pretty
say
black
like,
and white whether or not you can do any compulsory move.
yeah, you'd have to say like
completely.
at the time that you do the compulsory move, you have to position
Yeah.
the tool in such a way that it allows you to move as far as possible or something like that.
Yes.
But yeah, I'd rather they just like the crashing thing was simple. Since they changed the timing to be beginning or end of activation for compulsory move, it was never something that should happen as a result of a mistake. Simply because you could just, if you put yourself in a bad position, you just pivot and you take your compulsory at the end. It definitely could result in you taking some like inefficient pivots or something. But as far as like a new player feels bad with the compulsory timing change, there's like no reason for anybody to ever be crashing, especially now since you can go off the table and come back to.
Yeah, that's
like
There
I'm
was
fine with that.
an answer a couple hours
Yeah.
ago
I think that's fine. It's just like
that they do have to, if possible.
they do have to try and move as far as possible. Okay, there you go. But yeah, I mean, the damage thing kind of accomplishes that by making it something that you would never want to do on purpose.
Yeah.
But also that you could essentially never do by accident because of how the compulsory moves worked.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't really get that one either. But
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. We still get to roll dice. Dice are fun. I don't know, man. I'm trying here. Like,
no, I know.
negativity breeds negativity, and
no, it does.
we're not.
Look, and so I don't usually go on Facebook.
Yeah, I avoid it.
I made
avoid the
a
Legion
single
Facebook.
Facebook comment this weekend because basically somebody had posted, like, yeah, we had a 20-person tournament this weekend. Nobody enjoyed the new cover rules. We're going to go ahead and start using something different. And I was like, don't do that. Like, you have to like play with the new rules. Everybody should be playing with the new rules and trying them. And if you don't like them, then talk about it in a way that is constructive and civil and not like just posting a bunch of memes. So yeah, I want to encourage people to be positive because they have said that they're open to feedback. And I would encourage people to keep playing with the new rules. And if you don't like them, or if you do like them, make sure that people know about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've said what we're gonna say.
Yep.
Until they change them, and then we'll say it again. Which I think that's a huge positive, right? Like that they seem willing to change, and I as much as I like the idea of the forums, I don't like the forums because it's a lot of times it feels bad with players who aren't aware of the forums and just have a rule book and they're like, and you get in some like rules question during an event and they're like, what do you mean you're like, no, it says it on the forums. What are the forums? I've never heard of them. That's not an official thing. And you're like,
it's a lot to search through them too.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's why you got to use legionquickguide.com, the #1 tool for all your Legion rules needs. Brought to you by the Fifth
you
Trooper
have
and
to also use
JodoCast.
the forums.
Well, and there's really important stuff on there, like the whole every to every point for cover. The way that the actual CRB reads for cover is essentially the same that I read in the preview article when everybody thought that the attacker picked a point. The only reason we know that you draw that flashlight beam is because that is on the forums. But if you're just reading the CRB and you're applying what you think it says to how you do it, you're picking a point.
I was definitely a holdout there. There was definitely ambiguity in the CRB
Okay.
with
That's,
whether it was 1 point or all points.
I think that was a minority opinion though at the time.
Yeah, I minority all the time, whether I'm right
Yeah.
or wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm cool like that.
Yeah. Listen, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's something that's going to affect the game, but it's also, I think, something that could easily be repaired.
The fixes, there's a couple of extremely easy fixes that I think would please like almost everybody. And the first one is just doing it how everybody thought it worked, which is attacker picks a point. Because then you're starting from 1 point. You don't have to do like calculus to figure out like, and if you want to remove the whole like ATST shooting under an archway from its feet kind of a thing to get somebody in the open, you just make it so the point that the attacker picks has to be on the top disc of the cylinder. That's it. I think that would solve like 95% of the issues with the cover process.
Yeah, just go back to how it originally was when Legion first came out. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Get rid of silhouettes. Just go back to how it was.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. That makes it much easier for everybody.
You'd still have to do a different cover process though if you did that.
Yeah, but listen, I understand there's a lot. I know. I'm going to say this again. I know silhouettes helped us and cleaned up a lot of stuff, but I don't know. It was fine. It made sense. Sure, if you left Luke's lightsaber above some cover and he got shot, yeah, I get it. That sucked, but
should be a free deflect when they do that.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I mean,
auto surge block.
So hopefully
no dodge needed.
Hopefully they do this.
It'll be a good test of how in tune with feedback there.
Get those keyboards ready after LVO.
Well, and I don't want to like, yeah. All right. Should we talk about Dark Troopers?
Yeah.
Guess I should like bring up the art. You know what? I'm going to use actual cards. I guess I can. All right, so they spoiled some stuff in the preview article. Cards. By hook or by crook, possibly by mistake, I actually have some Dark Troopers.
How dares you?
as well as Mr. Gideon. There's Mr. Gideon.
Hey,
the Dark Troopers.
Nice.
I for that PAX gift card, they basically like sent me an email saying like, tell us what you want from the store and we'll send it to you. And I put some Dark Troopers and Gideon on there because I'm like, well, they're up for pre-order. I'm sure they'll wait until the February to send it to me. They did not. So yeah, either they didn't check the release date or they didn't care. But
or maybe they were like, hey, this is one of the number one players in all of the world, and he just won what was it, PAX Unplugged. We've got to get him his units now so that he's happy.
I am 100% confident that is not the answer. All right, so we have the Myrtleizer. Can you all see the Myrtleizer? It is 2 red and a black melee suppressive. The cricket bat, as people are calling it, 36 points. That's so as awesome as this thing looks, can you guys see like actually taking this?
No.
Is that black or red?
It's red, black.
No.
36 points for 2 of those attacks and 2 red armor saves. Red armored saves, I should say.
Here's my problem.
As one of your 2 heavies.
Yeah,
not your only heavy.
It's competing with these.
No, I understand. Yeah.
Like,
I think my problem with it is that even with Gideon's card, I think you're a target, right? And you taking a long time to get that close to myrtleize anybody with that bat. And so I think having those long range weapon options is a much better option. I mean, I don't even think you take two heavies with this unit. I think you take one.
Well, and their melee profile is kind
Yeah.
of silly to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, it's red, white, like per model. So I don't know how much more myrtleizing you need to make them
Yeah.
than they are already. Like if you've got two
One
heavies,
white upgrading to a red black when you get to do it twice.
right? But like, I think
That's
the
if
times
you
when
get
you
there.
when you have these guys in melee on purpose, like because you want them to be there, I think it's going to be pretty unusual. I think that could be a good like. I had a Jedi charge my lines near my other stuff where my Dark Troopers are, and I can probably maybe melee him with the Dark Troopers. I
Yeah.
think that'll happen, but they're essentially like in melee by accident then.
You don't
And-
think you're gonna ever drop them behind enemy lines and keep running at the enemy and eventually melee them?
No.
I think it's possible, but the opportunity, like, I'd rather, if you're going to be doing that, I'd rather, I mean, these two ranged weapons, right? You got
They're expensive.
the assault cannon. They're not that much more expensive though. The frag launcher
36,
is
40, and 48.
yeah. So the frag launcher is only 4 more points than the myrtleizer, and it gives you
Right.
double red.
12 less points than the assault cannon, though.
Well, sure, but I think you have to take the assault cannon.
Alright.
Because it gives you a critical 1, and they don't surge normally, and it's also 4 dice. So
So here my view on these guys is that like and John, I hear you and I hear what you're
It's a
saying,
discount option.
but you're
I-
coming at it from a Wookiee perspective.
No,
And
Wookiees
I
are
think
dead.
these guys are different. And that I think that how I see using these guys is more of like holding a flank and like watching lanes and like really holding down like a side of a table because they're going to be hard to get rid of. But if you're not like moving and trying to get into position with them, but you're just holding a position and just anything that's coming in with within range 3, if you don't go with the Dark Trooper regular personnel upgrade and you just go with the 4 with the 3 and the heavy, like you're at what 7 black dice at range 3 with
Yep.
critical 1.
yeah,
Like just hold that with armor and 2 health each. Just hold that spot, and you get to activate twice. Like nobody's coming through that lane. They'd be crazy to.
So that's just with the one heavy weapon assault cannon, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's
I mean, so that's a rebel DLT shot that they get to do twice.
right.
yeah.
Minus or trading a black for a white, or the other way around.
White for black.
Yeah.
And they have access to retinue, which I guess we
Yeah.
should. That's the programmed loyalty thing. This is 5 points. It basically gives them retinue. They can only be issued orders by a commander unit. I can't see any situations really where you don't want to be issuing them orders from an operative anyway. But
do they have to take that? No, that's optional.
no,
right?
it's optional, but it's only 5 points and it's retinue. So I could see if you're running Remnant, which apparently has, we'll get to it in a minute, different ways to get tokens. Maybe you don't take it, but otherwise, like 5 points for a free aim every turn seems like a no-brainer to me.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I like the version with just the assault cannon is 148. If you take the assault cannon and programmed loyalty, that seems fine to me. If you add the frank launcher, it's 188. Which I think also seems fine to me, especially if you're only taking 1 unit. You know, frag launcher has blast. They have that Gideon's card that's going to allow you to get to range 2 of something or close to range 2 of something. So yeah, I mean they're expensive, but they get to do their thing twice per turn. They've got full armor. They're full armor trooper unit. Like I don't know what else to.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I guess there's like two ways you play them. So the way I just said, where you're like holding lanes and stuff, but
Yeah.
I think where you would maybe take the myrtleizer bat is if you're gonna do a like Commander Vader and just like 1 speed death march, death ball across the, like it just like, nah, this is how this is
I don't
going,
think you. I don't think you 1 speed across the map with him. You
But
No,
either,
you put him-
you either
put him in a
drop
lap.
them in.
right.
Put him in a
Yeah,
lap.
I mean, that'd be gross.
Do not put him in a lat.
It
Well,
just
I
says
guess no,
tr-
they'd be the only ones that can do okay with that because if they lose their
Yeah.
order, then they get that second order.
Yeah.
But yeah, and only one wound, right? So
Nothing prevents
that
them
is
from
that is
going
a
in a lat.
that is a great change, by the way. A plus on the closed transport order
What?
flip change. Um,
I
yeah.
disagree.
Yeah.
I
Same.
mean, I guess
It might be a little bit too harsh, but you need some kind of like
yeah.
right now when you got a closed transport with a dangerous unit in it, your incentive is to not shoot it because by doing so, you give the unit inside more actions than it would have otherwise.
I don't disagree with you. I wish these rules.
Those transports aren't the best though.
Yeah.
So
The problem is, okay, you know what the real
the
problem
lat
is?
is bad.
Right.
The AA5 is
The
not.
AA5, right? And here's exactly
expensive.
what I was going to say: is they're implementing. This is the whole problem. Here's the whole problem with the rules changes. Okay, you ready?
all of the problem. Let's
All
hear.
the problems right here. They're implementing them as if everything is created equal. And they're not making changes for specific, like, okay, if that's an AA5 issue, which it is, I get that. It's not a lat issue, but by making that change that's like from a 10,000-mile view, you're affecting things that like were already borderline unusable. The only real thing they had is maybe with the Dark Troopers or Vader, Lat Vader dropping, and now that's gone. Like that's not a thing anymore. So what does the Lat have? Zip. Not a
Yeah.
nothing anymore.
Well, it wasn't even a Rebel AA5 issue, right? The Black Suns were
Yeah,
the issues.
Black Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess
It's-
Luke.
Rebels, like anyone else that came out of that bus and lost an activation also. Good night. Game over.
Yeah.
Shake the hand.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Like you can see that in the points changes with like the vigilance increase. You
Yeah.
know, is that a pike thing or is that a vigilance thing? And
Pike
the
thing.
right and the the tie break change. People are like, oh well, it's great now. VAPS is interesting, and it's like, couldn't you have just changed the VAPS objective?
Right.
You don't need to like make a comprehensive change to the entire game to make VAPS a little more interesting. You just need to change VAPS. So yeah, I think they could have been a little more targeted with some of the stuff. Like and the deflect change too. Like if there's force users that had, Vader's too good because he has deflect. And you're trying to nerf deflect, like Commander Luke has deflect. Nobody takes Commander Luke. Commander Luke is also like the only one with deflect that does not have a training slot for End of the Fray. So he's like extra screwed. If that was intended as a Vader nerf, like Vader has 2 training slots and he is reliable too. So he's actually like the least effective of all the
Yes,
deflect force
he
users.
is.
So
No, that was a hate crime against Operative Luke. That's what it was.
Yeah.
and Shadow Collective Maul.
Sure.
But yeah,
But right, like you're doing these 10,000-mile view changes, but you're not looking at what it affects, and so you're like taking things and just going, oh yeah, well, unintended collateral damage of this thing is that the lat is completely useless now, and that rebels lost vigilance and like one of the dodge things they had going for them. Like, dude, it's a strange thing. Like, was the standby sharing thing really directed directly at Yoda, or was that like a 10,000? Oh yeah, no, you shouldn't be able to share standbys. That makes sense from a 10,000-mile view when they, you know what I mean? It's just like, but you're affecting units but you're not adjusting their points to like the lat should be like 50 points.
I wouldn't go that low, but yeah,
75.
I love the standby, the rule that affected the Yoda's standby sharing, because it's literally a green token. And they said, these are the only green tokens. Don't look at standby. There's no green there.
There's no green on that token. Yeah.
I mean, the lat is as useful as the ISP at this point. It's worthless, so it might as well be 65 points. I don't even think you still might not use it for 65 points.
I think it's
Native
still
gun is
I think it's
definitely
still
worth that
usable.
much.
Yeah, I think it's more usable than you're giving it credit for.
All right, then 65 points makes it usable, is what we're saying.
No, I mean,
No, I think currently it's more usable than you're giving it credit for.
I think you're full of okay, because you're
105 points for a 4 die gun, and the AA5 to get a 4-die gun has to spend how much? We have a 3-die gun or a 6-die?
It
Call
is
it a 3-die gun.
so it
We're at
is
91.
significantly faster than the AA5.
Also,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just saying, it's not like this is not like an
Immune to
apples to
melee.
apples situation. Yeah, it's immune to melee. It can go over stuff.
Melee is like the best way to kill vehicles. Well,
Right.
my favorite way.
Yeah, it's not nothing. And people have even after the closed transport change, I've seen people succeeding with lats and doing like Vader lat stuff. Look, I'm not saying I'd bring it to a tournament. And
Okay.
I
Let's
definitely
start
like
there. Why not, Kyle?
because it's not my style, Jay.
No. I have found that the Kyle that I know, his style changes to whatever is good. So tell me, what would
Nothing
make
wrong with that.
what? No, I'm not judging.
What
That's
whatever
not a
whatever I
judgment
think is
call.
good, which is not always the same thing. That whatever. But anyway, continue.
What I'm saying is, what would make the great Kyle bring a lat to the table?
I mean, it'd have to be cheaper.
Right. If it was 65 points, you'd bring it to the table.
Oh,
wouldn't you?
I'd spam them if it was 65 points. I'd take
Okay.
2 of them.
Yeah. So
I'd do
what
double lat
about-
dark troopers.
Okay.
What about 90 points?
No.
Tauntaun cost. That's cheaper than a Tauntaun.
Those are
I would take
unusable
it
right now.
I'd take it at
I
90.
know. At 90. All right.
Yeah, I'd take it at
So
90.
we're between 90 and 105, Jay.
Yeah, I'd take it at 90.
You would
There you
take
go.
2 at 90.
I don't know if I'd take 2, but I'd take 1 at 90.
You take 1 at 90 and then 2 dark troopers with a
Yeah.
Gideon.
I'd think about it at least.
There you go.
All right.
Should we
So-
talk about Imperial Remnant before we get too off the rails here?
15 points. That's where we're at. I knew there was a number. This is how we negotiate.
The
John.
T-47 at one point cost 175 points. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it did.
and it is now 130. So anyway,
and
let's
still, you don't see it that often. It is such a good unit. Oh,
well,
It's not
you know what keyword's super good with all these cover changes?
critical.
Critical.
yeah.
You know what ignores cover and every defensive trick beside situational awareness? Critical.
Critical.
Anyway,
Anyway, Imperial Remnant.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I read some of the like the recaps that people are giving me, and it still makes no sense.
I haven't read any of it, so
All right.
this will be
So
news to me.
As long as you take one of everything, you can have one of everything. It's
like
the
it.
weirdest thing, and they can be whatever made up.
all right, here's how it works. Can I explain how it works?
Please.
Based on
Please.
what people have said from the stream. Okay, so the unit roster that they are allowed to take. This is according to the stream. At the commander slot, you have Gideon and the generic officer. For core, you have stormtroopers and shore troopers. You also have special forces units that count as core for list building, which is death troopers and scout troopers, no strike teams. So it's basically 4 units that go in your core slot: stormtroopers, full scout troopers, shore troopers, and death troopers. Okay.
And here's where it gets crazy, folks.
Yeah, here's where it starts to get weird. Before we get to that, they have access to E-webs and speeder bikes. They did not say the quantity, but I think the stream had 2.
Mhm.
And then you can have dark troopers. So that is a fairly limited unit roster, obviously.
Yep.
Here's where it gets weird. So the quote core slot, each of those 4 units, scouts, storms, shores, and death troopers, you have to take each of them at least once before you can take any of them twice. So after you take 1 storm, 1 scout, 1 shore, and 1 death trooper, you can do whatever you want with those last 2 core slots. But like you cannot take a second death trooper until you've taken also a shore trooper, at least 1 shore trooper, 1 scout trooper, and 1 stormtrooper. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Mhm.
So once you've taken at least one of each, then you can do whatever you want with the last 2 slots.
So you could triple down on one of them.
It seems like it based
Okay.
on the stream. Yes. Also, you can mix and match all the heavy weapons from those 4 units with each other, which is, I think, the primary. There's no command cards for this battle force, so that is like the reason that you would take it. Also,
Triple Dark Death Trooper and throw all the heavies on them.
not necessarily. Oh, Death
No?
Trooper. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Um,
Better defense.
yeah, and if units are outside of a range, so the Commander Courage bubble for Remnant is range 2 instead of range 3, both for orders and for panic checks. If units are outside of that, they get independent aim or dodge, which is kind of amazing. Imperial units with independent aim.
That's fine. That's fine.
I mean, think about a Death Trooper with an RT-97C, which
I don't
is
want to.
which
You
is
can't make me.
cheaper. What is that? 96 points instead of like 100 something. It's got 8 dice. They have precise 2, so you're rerolling 4 dice. They do that at range 4, and they get a free aim from independent. That seems pretty good. I don't know if it's like too good at 96 points, but it's pretty good. But yeah, this is a very heavily restrictive force org. The fact that you have to like take one of each, that's very restrictive. The unit roster itself, you can't take strike teams. You can't take mortars with your shores. I have a feeling that it's going to get hard for this to get like above 9 activations and have it be reasonable looking. But we'll see. I think it's interesting. It seems on theme for me. Without being
Definitely
crazy
seems
at first glance.
interesting. It is hard to make. Well, they're not going for balance. Never mind.
It doesn't look overpowered to me, if that's what you're implying.
No, I'm just talking about mixing and matching heavy weapons across units. Like, there's a reason that they're restricted to
Yeah.
units.
You
And
open up some weird possibilities there. Like you could run 6 Sabs if you want. I don't know if that'd be good or not, but you
was
could do
Snow
it.
Troopers one of them?
Snows are not one of them.
Okay. It was Storm, Scout, Death Trooper.
And
What was
shores.
the Shore? Okay.
So I think the
At least
answer
no
is
steady with the heavy weapons.
well, right. If you could have like a T-21 with steady, that'd be silly.
3 of them.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the answer is you give the Death Troopers RTCs, Storm RTCs, and you give everything else the regular T-21, and you call it a day.
Maybe.
That seemed
But
right.
yeah, like that's the expensive version. But like, then what's the discount version? Which
think-
platform's the best to put the best heavy weapon on?
I think that is the discount version.
No, because you're paying 96 points 3 times.
Oh no, I'm not saying you take 3 Death Troopers.
Oh, I am.
Okay. I mean, I
I mean,
think,
that's where my head's going to, is trying to pick the best one and get 3 of those.
yeah, I don't think you can afford more than like 2 of them if you want heavies on the other stuff. Based on what I've been playing around with here.
Gotcha.
You can take like 2 Death Troopers, and you can take Gideon, and you can take 1 unit of Dark Troopers, but then you have to kind of like, you fill your
'Cause you
core
got
up to
Dark
6.
Troopers. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Dark Troopers are a hefty chunk of that.
Oh, yeah.
That's 250 to 300 points for just Gideon and the Dark Troopers, basically.
Right.
Then you take 2 Death Troopers. That's 5. You're up to 500 already. So,
It's like Yoda plus Chewie. Kidding. Slight exaggeration.
yeah, slight. Yeah. I don't know. This seems. I'll have to play with it. This looks
Yeah.
thematic to me without being, like overpowered. This looks a lot less sloppy
Independent
than
aim is annoying, but
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how much of an issue that ends up being.
Shore Troopers always have an aim every time.
Yep, whether you give them an order or not. Yep, but you can't take the mortar, which is like one of the primary reasons to take shores. So yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
You could bring DTF 16 in there, or is there like a unique
Nope.
restrictions?
The
Okay.
only unique upgrade allowed is the Darksaber.
Okay.
Gideon's, for the record.
Yeah, well, we have 3 dark sabers now.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that they're not the same.
That could
Totally makes sense.
change, right? Because wasn't there something in the rules about unique or some? There was a rules change about unique stuff, right? It's like could be a
I don't
number or
know.
something of how many. There was, dang it!
Oh, I don't know.
I'll find it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I don't think it breaks anything, you know? I think it'll be I'm not really scared of it. Just like, yeah, I don't know. That seems clunky.
It's just
And
another
they don't
way
have
for
any
me to be
special
annoyed with
cards.
Empire.
You know?
I could see it being good if you build it correctly. But I think that's kind of the right mark to hit for Battle Force, right? The only thing I could see being weird with this is since you're mixing and matching heavy weapons, are we going to be expected to like, you know, make a Death Trooper model with an RT-97, or do you just like
Well,
take the Stormtrooper dude and put him in the Death Trooper unit and like paint their base rims all the same color or something?
yeah, that will get weird for unit markings and all.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a minor complaint, but
Yeah.
it's a question that needs to be asked.
So here it is. Unique or limited cards identified by a bullet in front of their name. We knew that already, right?
Yep.
The
Yes.
number of bullets indicates the maximum number of cards a player can field that share that same name.
Interesting.
Okay, so we could see 2 bullets out there allowing 2.
Dark sabers. You could see
No.
a two.
If they do that, that's just intentionally breaking immersion
Yeah, you wouldn't
just
see.
for fun.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just saying.
I don't know what there would be 2 of.
It's a possibility. They're already breaking immersion because an ATST can't shoot a unit it can clearly see because there's a little small barricade in between it.
Well, you forgot about the foot guns. So
Yeah, not just an
that's
ATST.
your
Any
fault.
any unit.
Yeah.
I think there's a danger with the cover stuff of people focusing too much on the ATSTs. Like
No.
it's silly with trooper units too.
Right, but I
Like-
think the reason I bring up the ATST is it's the most glaring,
It
and then
exaggerates it.
and then it opens you up to it opened me up to the other problems. I didn't
Yeah,
see
yeah.
the other problems before, but then when you're like John, you and I had that game at PAX. There was many times that I was like, hey, I got those rebels in the open, and you're like, ah, shoot, yeah, you do, but now not anymore.
As I'm hiding behind a 12-inch building, mind
Right,
you, like
right.
trying to hide.
And
Yeah.
but that's the thing. It was a nice thing that the ATST had going for it that's now gone.
It was like its primary feature.
Right.
Yeah. No, yes. I get what you're saying. I'm afraid that they're going to be like, oh, well, vehicles can look from the top of the silhouette. Everyone else still does it every to every. And it's like, no, that's not.
Right.
That
I
doesn't solve
understand.
it.
I'm sorry. I'm using the exaggeration because that's how
Yeah.
my brain processed it and was like,
Right.
this is bad. But like because
Yeah.
before that was explained to me, I was like, who cares? This is fine. And then
Yeah. I think the risk with hyperbole is that only the crazy scenarios get fixed without
yes, that makes sense.
without the still crazy but slightly less ridiculous situations getting fixed too. Which like it's trooper to trooper shooting. Trooper to trooper shooting is also silly. So yeah. Anyway, we're going to LVO is this week. We didn't actually
It
do like
is.
a LVO prediction thing. I don't think that we need to. I have no idea what to expect anyway.
It's the Wild West.
Except total chaos. So I think I'm probably just bringing Blizzard. I'm less thrilled about it than I was a few weeks ago. Speeder bikes are really not good with the new cover rules. Because like their whole thing is getting units out of cover with flanking and positioning, and that's just not a thing right now. You'd think like if anyone could do it, speeder bikes should be able to, but even then it's not.
I'm glad they got something that's not going for them.
Yeah. There you go. It only took completely nuking the cover rules to finally nerf Blizzard Force.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Still got Vader in it, and he's Darth Vader. So
Vader is great. I don't know how I'm gonna handle Vader.
Yeah.
I'll just hit him with a stick.
You just shoot him. It's easy.
Sometimes they just save everything.
Easy peasy.
And sometimes they don't save anything.
I shot a Luke 12 times yesterday. 12 times.
Uh-huh.
With die pools of 4 and greater. In light cover, he took like 3 wounds.
You know who gets cover really easily now? Single model units.
I was getting him out of cover. He had suppression cover.
Okay, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, Darth
Who
Vader.
else can move over terrain really easily now?
Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
I just saw something that says you can't jump down from height 2.
Really?
And it's in the forum,
Okay.
but it seems to be directly contradicting the CRB that says you measure your jump height from where you start.
Oh, that's
Speaking-
another weird thing. Speaking of jump height, like normal.
You could
Like
climb
every
higher than
ability.
you could jump.
Yeah, because jump height is measured from the level that you're on, which is from your base. Because of how climb is worded, your climb height is actually measured from the top of the model.
So you get like a 7.5-inch climb and a 6-inch jump.
Yeah, or if you're like an ATRT, you get like a ridiculously tall
Yeah.
climb because you measure from the
Yeah.
top of the ATRT.
Wait, what? Say that again? Say that again.
Climb height is
Yeah.
Climb
measured
height is
from the
measured from the top of the model. I have no idea why.
I don't know.
Everything in
It's
every
under the
minis
climb
game,
rule.
every measurement in every minis game I've ever heard of measures from the base of a unit.
Yeah.
I don't understand. But
So I could understand this if you were like, they were putting out, like, you know how for MCP they got like Doctor Strange's Bleecker Street Mansion or whatever. Like if you were putting out terrain that's like, two ranges tall, and you're like, but we want these ATRTs to be able to get up there. It makes no sense.
yeah, an ATRT can climb like twice the height that a jump unit can jump. Basically.
Yeah, what is that, like a 4-inch tall model? 5-inch? It could almost go
I think
height
it's about
2 with that
5.
climb.
It all depends on how you model it too. Like,
yeah, the tippy toe ATRT.
oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh God.
Maybe
Please
I'll
don't do
bring
that, people.
ATRT flamers for
Do you
weekend
remember
and just
people used to
climb
do that
over
with the
everything.
ATST?
Yeah, this is obnoxious.
They used to just make the legs straight, so it would
Yeah.
be like 5 times taller.
Yeah.
God, I hated that. And I was an ATST player. I refused to do that. I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
it's tall enough. It's fine.
Yeah, it's already like
Yeah.
14 inches tall or whatever. Yeah.
What
But
a weird turn of events, huh?
Yeah.
All I
Yeah.
can think about is an ATRT like jumping over buildings like Superman. Pshoo!
Yeah, ATRTs can climb higher than Jedis can jump.
Yeah,
they're
that's,
just bouncing
they
around.
They just run up the wall like Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with a speed 1 move on their base, that might be faster still than a speed 2 jump,
What's really strange is you could have a unit with jump that cannot reach a certain point with jump, but they can reach it with climb because they like, if it's like 7 inches tall or whatever, they'll be able to climb
Absolutely.
up there, but they can't jump up there.
Absolutely. And that does exist all the time.
Yep.
Where it's just above height 1.
Yep.
So ATRT speed 1 move would be 5.2 inches compared to the 6-inch speed 2 trooper move jump. So they almost go over terrain as fast.
With much greater height.
Yes. Much greater height.
Interesting. Yeah.
ATRT meta. Here we come. Repair bots. I've got like 6 of them.
Have you seen? I'm more worried about like the droid lists where that people have like 4 or 5 B2s and then 3 flame spider droids. Which one of those type of lists where that somebody just spammed a bunch of B2s just went 5-0 at an Australian tournament. I guess if everyone has cover and you're like, whatever, I'm gonna just take 8 units with blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
B2's
easy for that short little spider to get cover.
Yep, B2s like cover too. With their white saves and their armor. So
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see B2s being really good right now.
Well, you guys
I
have
have that
another 3
army.
or 4 days to figure this out.
Oh, we got tomorrow
I mean,
night to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably bringing Blizzard unless something drastic changes in the next 24 hours. But
I've lost enough games playing my current list that I'm gonna play it for LVO.
there you go.
Because in theory, I've learned that much, right?
Yeah,
Those
right.
losses were learning, and
That's
now
a learning
I won't
experience.
lose those.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is true. That's good, John. If you're taking some education from your losses, you're doing all right, pal.
I've played it 4 times, lost 2 of them, and I did see
So you're
where I
50%.
messed up.
You're looking
Yeah.
at this. You gotta look at this as half full.
Yeah,
Yeah.
50% is gonna get me all the way through
Yeah.
Friday,
Um,
not to Saturday.
Unless you're talking about cover, then you round down.
Yes.
The
Oh,
glass is
man.
half empty and cover.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Unless you're an ATRT and you jump up.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We basically have jump.
Can't
love
stop me now. That's the new meta, Gar. There you go.
Just take all the
ATRT
flame
meta.
ATRTs.
Yeah.
Man,
just-
getting that surge block. Yeah.
All right, how about we
I
how
have
about
to
we
build a list.
crash this thing
Yeah.
and take no damage in the process?
Heyo.
Well, take copious notes at LVO. I want to hear how it
All
all
right.
turned out. Oh, and for those of you at home, you can watch the stream. It's on Yavin Base Twitch channel. That's David Zelenka.
Yep.
So you can check that out. All the games will be, well, not all the games. It'll be just a handful of games because
Yeah.
you can only do one at a time. So there'll be a few games. I'm assuming the top game will be there.
Probably. They're going to stream Unconventional Warfare on Sunday instead of the final
That would
table.
be amazing.
I thought you were serious for a second. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Like, nah, I'm not doing that. That sounds like a Jay Shalansky move.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be great to see everyone. I am looking forward to going to Vegas specifically to see people. That is
Yes.
the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
So come say hi. There will be like 4 or 5 of us from Fifth Trooper there. So
Yeah, just not while they're playing.
yeah.
Come on, you guys. Come on. If you see them talking to someone else or playing, leave them alone. Okay,
I mean,
leave them alone. Don't
within
open
reason,
that
you can
door,
still
John.
say hi.
Use your social skills to
Yeah.
assess whether
Yeah.
it's okay to say hi.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Do you know what group we're in?
All right. Maybe that's not the best advice. Jay. All right.
Use the skills that someone with social skills would have, and they think about what they would do.
All right. We're the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jay.
I'm John Bushfax Bushman.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.